was not there last week last meeting to introduce herself, as well as I did want to mention that we're recording this conversation with your permission, if that's okay, so we can transcribe it and get accurate minutes. So Diane, actually, prior to us reviewing and adopting the agenda, would you mind introducing yourself?
I'm Diane D'Imperio, and I am retired now, although managed to stay very active. And I have been involved with public health initiatives that have been directed very much towards equity. We didn't call it that then, but that's what it was. And so my background is in health primarily, although I'm working now a lot in voting and voter rights and things like that. So I'm very committed to this process. And Holly remembers when I was testifying against the funding of the emergency, the
wrong
urgent
kind
care
of help,
center.
wrong kind of help.
Yeah, so I was very interested in the article in the paper yesterday, and I don't see that on the agenda, but I'm hoping at some point we can talk about that, because I want to know where that money's going and who's getting the services.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you, Diane.
Thank you.
Can we just have everyone go ahead and say their names for the record and the transcript, if you wouldn't mind?
Ron Ross, pastor, Greater Bethel AME Church.
Thank you.
Yvette Carter, community person.
Khalid Blount, community person.
Inkwanda, Cultural Arts Coalition.
I've been introduced.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to introduce myself.
All right, Jerry Crawford, community activist.
Okay.
I'm Carl Smart. I'm Deputy County Manager.
And Margaret Duval, Assistant County Attorney's Office.
Tristan?
Oh, hi, I'm Tristan, Senior Staff Assistant with Deidre, Equity, Sustainability, Economic Development. And just so everyone knows, the big mics in front of you are not the mics that are working. It's the cellular, like the circular device there. So it's picking up your voice just fine. You're fine. All right.
Thank you, everyone, for being there. Margot, I can't see you, but I'm glad you're in the room. And I'm Deidre Houchin, the Equity and Community Outreach Manager and Staff Liaison for the Equity Advisory Board. You have before you copies of the agenda. Welcome, Mrs. Crawford. Can we review that agenda and adopt it today? Can I have a motion to adopt that agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Is there any discussion on the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to add Khalid Blount's name to the Equity Advisory Board on the first page.
Thank you, sir. I have already edited that on the draft of the agenda that I'll be sharing back to the commission after this meeting.
He's here.
Dr. Houchin, additionally, Tara Richardson, I think she's an alternate.
Yes,
So
ma'am, I have that indicated as well. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
On this sheet, both of those changes.
No, well, we talked about the
The
agenda.
agenda.
Yeah, you guys are so experienced.
Any other discussion on the agenda?
Wasn't being sarcastic.
Great. With those two changes noted, can we vote to accept the agenda as presented? All those in favor, would you say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The agenda is adopted. And then second, can we move to approve the minutes from the January 11th meeting? I believe those are provided in front of you.
Ron Rawls moved that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Second, Jerry Crawford.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes have been approved. Now on to the most exciting thing on the agenda today, the election of the chair and vice chair of this Equity Advisory Board. So the chair would serve for the next year as well as the vice chair. And it is our duty to elect this member as soon as we begin, generally. So I would love to hear someone make a motion to begin with chair and electing a chair, and then we'll move on to vice chair. I see Kali, and it would be wonderful if we have motions where people recommend themselves. Don't be shy. That's perfectly okay. Okay, Kali.
I'd like to offer a nomination, motion to nominate Reverend Rawls for chair.
Second.
It has been moved and second to recommend Reverend Rawls, appoint Reverend Rawls as chair of the Equity Advisory Board. Is there a discussion?
Are you willing to accept it?
Question.
Yes,
I called a question. Let's go to the
They're
vote.
ready to vote?
wonderful. All those, so it has been properly moved and seconded to appoint Reverend Ron Rawls as chair of the Equity Advisory Board. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those, any opposed? Wonderful. By unanimous vote, Reverend Rawls is now the chair of the Equity Advisory Board. Reverend Rawls, we congratulate you. And after this next vote, I will hand over this meeting to you and support you through it.
Actually, Reverend Rawls gets to do the, next vote since he's the chair now.
Wonderful.
And he also gets to chair at the head of the table, so, I'll switch with him.
You see how prophetic it was last meeting, right?
Are you passing
Is that
this
what you
on?
said last time?
That's a lot of law.
All right.
We'll give it to him too. Okay, nice little gift.
All right, so now we need to, accept a motion for someone to recommend, vice chair for the Equity Advisory Board, serve for the next year.
I move, Mr. Chair, that Jerry Crawford be vice chair for the next year.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Jerry Crawford serves as vice chair for the year. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you very much.
That's good
And
work.
thank you, Ms. Crawford, for being willing to serve.
Both of you.
Very good, very good.
They might have just messed up.
They have, they might be a dynamic.
We'll be nice, we'll be nice,
All right.
we'll be easily managed.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is the overview of Alachua County governing documents, performance, outcomes, and departmental structures. We're gonna have a material presentation by Dr. Houchin and the attorney Courtney Wilson.
My apologies, that should say Attorney Margot Duvall. Courtney Wilson was with us last week. Margot has pleasantly agreed to step in for this week and then potentially share that role with Courtney moving forward.
That's D-U-V-A-L?
Yes.
All right. All right, we're ready for your presentation.
Okay. So I'm going to begin, and I'll be sharing my screen throughout the presentation. You all can hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So in our last meeting, we asked basically, or you all asked as a council, two questions, as a board, two questions. One, where is the information that tells us how we're doing as a county? And that information is within our performance measures and our budget book, so I'll talk about that second. And the first question was, what are the different governing documents for the county and its various plans? And how might we go through all of those documents? And you had fantastic ideas about how you wanted to find out how the county is doing with equity, such as listening sessions and hearing from each listening sessions out in the municipalities, as well as having people from departments come in and share with us. So we gathered, as well as organizational charts for each of the county's departments. So we gathered that information and provided just a list of definitions for those different governing documents, and that's what I'm going to go through with you now. And Margot will weigh in if I make a mistake about some document and what it governs, and be in the room for questions as well. So without further ado, the first document I'm going to share is the governing documents for Alachua County. I'm sorry, give me 1 second to make sure I'm pulling up the right document. Does the document on the screen right now say governing documents for Alachua County?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so
If you
to
can make it
walk
large-
us, can I make it larger? Surely.
Much
How's
better.
that?
Perfect.
Okay, great. So to walk us through, as the document begins, the Alachua County is governed by something called Home Rule Charter, and all of the laws, which are called ordinances, on a broad level that the county commission creates and has to abide by, are contained in its code of ordinances. In just a second, I'll bring up that code of ordinances and share that with you. The code of ordinances includes ordinances related to, did the screen switch when I touched that button? Okay,
Yes.
great. So here is the code of ordinances, and it relates to how the commission is going to adopt policies. That's the administrative code, as well as specific other codes within this large code and document on all kinds of policies for the commission. Included in that is the Unified Land Development Code, which governs where and how development happens in Alachua County. Included in that is codes related to our code enforcement and how we enforce buildings in Alachua County and structures, and other high-level codes. Margot, if there's more that I should be stating on that set of codes, please share.
You're doing a good job, thank you.
Okay, great. So that is one set of policies that this board could decide to examine for bias. The next set of policies, and the one that I'm really hoping that this board will choose to work with me on, is the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is about 15-year document. I'm going to share it with you now. Okay. The comprehensive plan essentially is the board's governing document to share its strategy related to all of its different programs and services for a 15-year period, 21-year period. So the comprehensive plan is divided by elements. The work that I took on with growth management last year was to provide a definition for equity in the comprehensive plan there was a definition previously that we found to be too broad to really act upon, that wasn't up to date with regard to current best practices around what is equity. So we created a definition for equity that would govern the comprehensive plan, and then amended and created a definition for environmental justice that also situated communities of color and equity considerations in that definition. And then we amended 2 to 3 policies and 1 element, the land use element of the comprehensive plan, because there were issues before the board from a community, particularly a community of color, where the comprehensive plan did not give enough guidance for the board to be able to act, to use an equity framework in its decision making. So we provided those definitions as well as amended those policies so that the board had more of a framework to make decisions on. What myself and that team, that's growth management, their comprehensive planning team, will do over the course of the next year is audit the entire comprehensive plan for equity. So, which means we'll create an audit tool, which is what I'm working on right now, and then we'll apply that tool to all 12 chapters or so of the comprehensive plan. That tool will ask questions like, what are marginalized communities identified in this element of the plan? As well as a number of, it'll be about a 4-page document that allows us to ask questions of the comprehensive plan and see where it falls short for equity and where we need to do that work. It would be helpful to have this board work alongside us on that project. Just for an example, as I introduce you to the comprehensive plan, the word equity, it's about a 400-page document. The word equity is referenced 24 times in this document as it stands. There is no chapter for equity, and we're not recommending necessarily a standalone chapter, but equity is sporadically mentioned throughout the document, and much of that is in reference to the 2018 Bieber report on racial inequities in Alachua County. And this document is saying, reference that guide. That's essentially what's in the comprehensive plan at this point. Any questions about the comprehensive plan, or shall I move on to the next? Yes, Khalid.
You said, on one point, you said something about committee members coming along with that work. I think it was after you talked about the comprehensive plan. So I'm going to volunteer for dealing with the comprehensive plan too. It'll just remind me of being in planning school, which was pleasant. So I'd love to be in that.
That's wonderful. One suggestion that I have for this body is, as we meet monthly, to hear the progress we're making on that comprehensive plan. For example, after I create a draft equity audit tool for this committee to review that tool, as well as to continue being a part of that audit process. It should take about a year, which is about how long we have identified for our first work plan. So it would work together well. So moving on from the comprehensive plan, I'm going to stop sharing that. I noted already that the county's land development code is inside the comprehensive plan and also part of the Florida state statutes. And then the other governing documents for the county are its policy manuals. So the county manager creates policy as well. And first here is the employee policy manual, which standardizes all of the issues related to employment within Alachua County. Second is the county manager's administrative procedures, which might be how to do something as an employee. And then finally, any commission policies related to buildings, trespassing, proclamations. So these are a policy that the commission might set for a specific issue, but not a large governing document. Now, in addition to those broad sweeping policies, there's a lot of plans. There's the Climate Action Plan, which our Department of Environmental Protection will be spearheading, and that document will cover about a 20-year period and be created. It's in the works now, and it's set to be finished by October of next year. So that's a document that I hope will come before this board and you all will advise us on. There are other governing documents such as the Parks Master Plan, which have already been created, that we would be sharing with you for your review as well. And then, of course, there are things like the Affordable Housing Plan or housing plans in general that come out of that department and those committees that this board could collaborate on and review. So those are all of the governing documents and kind of an orientation to how they're related to what the county does. And then the second question is, how do we get a handle on how we're doing related to that? Has to do with the organization's performance measures. So I'm going to stop sharing this and share with you two documents. Okay. The first document, and we attached this in your backup material. This is a part of the Alachua County's budget book. I went through the budget book and I copied and pasted about 100 to 150 pages of it into a document for you. This 150 pages really describes, the reason I included the first 5 pages was because it describes particularly the board strategic planning chart, which notes that equity is one of the board's 4 pillars that guide its strategic plan. It includes the actual board strategic guide, which is our, for lack of a better term, strategic plan document. And then the document goes on department by department. So let's take animal resources as an example. To describe the department's general mission, its accomplishments for last year, as well as its priorities for this year, and then performance, the budget for each department, and then performance measures for each department. So focus area, provide for the welfare and protection of the public. That's the performance measure. And here's the data that department has collected with regard for that measure. Number of respondents to calls, requests for field services. Each department proceeds in the same way. I do want to let this advisory board know that last week, the Board of County Commissioners met, and in a policy discussion, a conversation was had, and the board is now, by direction of the county manager, going to revise these performance indicators. So many of the performance indicators that have been tracked previously won't be tracked in the future, or each department is going to make a recommendation about different performance measures, because the board and the county manager felt as though some of what was being tracked may not be most relevant for citizens or most relevant for us as a county. The other point I wanted to make is that these performance measures are generally linear measures in that they indicate how many or how much of something happens. They're not equity metric based at this time, which says how much of a population did we change. We're not collecting that kind of data, and hopefully the revamp of performance measures will move us in that direction. So beyond performance measures, I also want, the final piece of information I wanted to share with you was that the county does have a transparency website. And this conversation was really linked to the conversation about performance measures last week. So if you go to Alachua County and just put transparency or performance measures into your browser, this page of different measures comes up that will allow you to visually see the graph of how each department is doing related to a measure over time. Part of the conversation between the board and the manager and staff last week was, should we be showing different performance measures to the county? Are these, in other words, this web page only displays like 60 of the 120 measures that Alachua County tracks across departments. Are they the right 60? Should we be displaying 60 other ones? And how well can we ensure that we're being transparent to the community on how we're doing? Exactly the question that the Equity Advisory Board asked in its former meeting. So, having said all of that, let me go back to the agenda so I don't go beyond what my role is here now. Yes. Are there any questions for myself or Margot on those documents and how they relate, anything at all? Khalid.
Can we be able to know along the way, as we examine these things, which ones are subject to change at any time and any meeting by a BOCC vote, and which ones are more resilient because of state statute or because of resources already committed or whatever reason? I'd like for us to know when we look at policies and consider what they're worth, how subject are they to change or not change?
I've noted that. Surely myself and the attorneys can talk about what that means for me is that you want to know both the organized plan for when different policies, ordinances get reviewed and adopted. So we're on track with those schedules, as well as kind of soft and hard rules that staff might be aware of which policies the board routinely or in this upcoming season are willing and able to change.
Yeah, and I'm asking that because, you know, we're potentially about to have an extremely different county commission with the new election scheme, and scheme is the right word. So, you know, some things could be just knee-jerk changed because of a different political philosophy.
Noted.
Thank you.
So is there like, how soon could they close down the equity office?
That's an example.
That's an example.
Yeah.
Any other questions or discussions on these governing documents?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. Thank you. I will turn the meeting back over to you, Chair Ross.
All right, thank you, Dr. Houchin. All right, and so looks like we have a lot of homework to do. And, but we'll move on to a work plan discussion. The Equity Advisory Board enabling resolution, section 4.4, is to assist the county in reviewing policies, programs, and services for racial and gender bias, and make recommendations to the county on means for eliminating such bias. And so this is one area, and we have 3 points that we have bulleted here, to have a conversation on work plan, discussion. All right, and so anybody want to share any thoughts? And that comes from section 4.4, that part of our responsibility is to assist the county in reviewing policies, programs, and services for racial and gender bias, and then make recommendations to the county on means for eliminating such biases. Any conversation on that? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, I guess I have a question. Is the expectation, or would it be most beneficial if we, review alongside the, equity department, the equity office? I heard, Dr. Houchin say that there are gonna be policies that they are over the next year reviewing and working with the departments on. Are we to let them do it and then we review that? Or are we reviewing separate policies to bring back? I just kind of wanna know what I guess it's the chicken or the egg.
Right.
How are we expected to work alongside, the equity office and, ultimately for the benefit, of the county at large?
All right, did you hear that, madam?
I
Dr.
did
Houchin?
hear that. I did hear that. Thank you for the question. So you have choice, and the first choice would be the thing that I've stated a preference for, which I would love to see more get done, so I have that preference as well. But the first proposal is that the Equity Advisory Board would work alongside Growth Management on the equity audit of the comprehensive plan. And I set up my work here at the county and launched this advisory board after we had a definition for equity and after we started working on that work on the comprehensive plan, with that hope and with that anticipation that it would not just be the staff inside Growth Management, the comprehensive planners and me, the equity manager, creating some critique of the comprehensive plan, but that this council would help create that critique and ensure that the community's interests are represented in the comprehensive plan review. So that's one approach. The other approach is to use, for example, Margot and Courtney, what they shared with me in between our last meeting and today was an approach we could use to review each department and then the associated documents that are within that department. Just an overview, not a deep review, but for example, in our next meeting, we could prepare a short presentation on parks and show how parks is related to what governing documents, which funding streams. So in that presentation on parks, we would get at how is Wild Spaces Public Places connected to parks, what is the department's priorities, and review the data that is provided in that budget book. We could choose to review the master plan. So there, you all have the opportunity to choose any set of documents to start reviewing, and then I could guide us through that process, or we can start working on the train that's already moving.
The train that's already moving, is there, a plan of how that will move in terms of timing? You know, will 1 month dealing with parks, another month dealing with something else, or is there kind of like some sort of idea of how that will move? And my other question is the county and is the county and the equity office moving along on any certain direction? I mean, you know, in terms of what they're going to look at next and what they're going to look at after that. I mean, I want to know about the Wild Spaces Public Places is one of the places I want to see what's happening in terms of equity.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't want us to be doing that opposite ends, you know. But if there could be some sort of unified research done, so that we're all on the same page at the same time.
I think I hear you and understand. So, one, with regard to the comprehensive plan, we will finish that in a year. So fiscal year 2024 started in November. We expect that it'll likely be January 2025 before we're finished with that comprehensive plan review. So yes, that would be 1 to 2 elements of that comprehensive plan, a meeting for you all. That's how that would work. We would have more meetings within each month, but we could bring back each element each month to this group. And I could help organize that. Now, with regard to the other kinds of plans like the master plan or which document governs Wild Spaces Public Places for parks, what we were suggesting is to bring, or one idea that we had is to bring, even if we're working on the comprehensive plan amendments, to bring each of those departments to you each meeting for a short presentation, so that while we're working on one main thing over the entire course of the year, you're still meeting each department and hearing about how that department relates to different policies. And that could be a smaller project you all choose to take on as a work group. If there's something that arises that's one at the top of the board's agenda with that, or at the top of your interest with that. So that would be my suggestion for the year, is to move on one document fully and continue to have a rolling review of each department with those policies and budgets and all of that presented to you each time. And I would be responsible for scheduling that and getting the support of Margot and Courtney to understand the matrix of policies that govern that department.
All right, Ms. Crawford.
Okay, I have a quick question. You know, I forgot my, how many departments are within, you know, that would be talking about reviewing, and what would be, you know, you said a short presentation, we're talking about like a 15-minute overview, like as part of our meetings, So my question is to not, I guess, drag everything out, like, could we do two related departments at the same time at some point, or, you know, just to get the information, because I think if you're not familiar with all the departments in the county and how they're governed, an overview is something that I think we all probably need. So just to kind of like how we would, determine which departments, let's say if we're talking about parks, now what other, could parks and public works go together? Or
Oh,
would
that's
there
for
be
me.
time for that?
Okay, the question, my recommendation would be that each department, and I'm using the word department a little bit loosely, because Ms. Crawford, you know how the county is. There are divisions and, you know, but over the last 2 years, I learned like court services does these things. Community support service. So and when you're asking how many, I'm looking at that number right now, but I'm going to say somewhere between 12 and 15, if not more. So how that would happen is we would ask the director, and I've already done that. I sent out a survey to say, where's this information in your department, and who would be willing to speak to a council on behalf of your department. So we would invite a director from each department to share about their programs and to share a little bit more about their funding streams and the policies, as well as their outcomes. Frankly, the directors would be sharing more about funding streams and programs, and Margot and Courtney would be sharing more about the matrix of policies that govern that particular department, or that department is accountable to. I saw a hand go up. I apologize.
I want to see if Deputy Manager Smart wants to add something to that, and then Council Member D'Imperio, and then Council Member Carter.
I just want to add to what Dr. Houchin was saying. I think that, what you're asking is doable. I think if you take a particular project on for this year, like, for example, the comprehensive plan and growth management, and then you have some segment of your meeting for hearing from a department and being able to get information on that department and get a good idea. There are some departments that are, as you know, small, and then other departments are vast. They're big. Community support services is big. Public works is big, you know, and so,
Their court services, I was like, oh my God.
yeah. It's hard to squeeze that in 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But we can follow the direction of this board, that if you want to say, give us a couple of small departments, or give us one large department, we take 10, 15 minutes per meeting, or some meeting. Don't have to be every meeting, it can be the ones you designate, and then hear from those departments and start to get a better idea of how what programs and what services the county offers.
Yeah, and I do understand what you're saying, because there's programs within departments, and they're all governed, you know, by their own set of rules.
Yeah.
But, maybe since you mentioned that though, just to kind of like cut our teeth, maybe we should start out with one of the smaller ones, and, you know, kind of, get a feel for what we would like to know, what we want to add before we get to, you know, bigger programs. But, okay, thanks.
So it seemed to me like Dr. Houchin was suggesting that we start with the comprehensive plan, which makes sense to me, since you've had over a year to think about this, and it's a really comprehensive document, so that seems to me to be a reasonable place to start. So I'm just suggesting that we start there. That sounds reasonable to me, and then I don't know if there's like some way to link, you know, how we progress. Is that something we can do one section a month, and then could we tie the presentations, the department presentations, to the kind of the topic that we're covering in the comprehensive plan? And then you wanted us to start, I think, with the audit tool. So I'm just suggesting that that's how we would proceed, just to sort of get the ball rolling here.
Thank you. I know at some point we'll be making a motion, and I wanna make sure I understand, like you said, Member, DePiero, what the game plan is. I think my question is, well, let me do a preface. I think this, advisory board is different, in that, than most advisory boards, in that it covers, the entirety, of the county and all of its departments, where most advisory boards cover a singular division, department, or area. And so orienting that board or, that group, I'm gonna say easier, I know that's a charged word, feels a little easier than orienting this group. I feel like a little bit of my hesitancy or my unreadiness is that, because we are different, it feels like to me we need some level of an orientation, maybe not as comprehensive as a commission where they go out to every department and you guys have to set up those meetings and it has to be publicly noticed or you have to do one person at a time, maybe not that extensive, but it feels like to me, in order for us to be able to truly give thoughtful, beneficial, and well-planned advisement into comprehensive plan or any other work plan, is that we have to have like at least some level of orientation that's not piecemeal, I was gonna say, that's not 1 month at a time, but that we get some level of a vast overview, even if it's high level, about the workings of the county before we go down the road of diving into a plan. Some people may know, but some of us may not know, and I just would hate for any of us to not be fully engaged because we don't have any background knowledge or information before we get started. I guess that's my only concern about the doing one a month here. I mean, if you're saying 15, that could take us 15 months. So I guess I'm a little, that's a little bit of my hesitancy.
So I was just taking time to look over, so as we're thinking and listening to what Ms. D'Imperio, am I saying that right? Okay, what was said and hearing everything, I think we probably should make sure that we put ourselves in a position to be informed and know exactly how we're going to approach this elephant. And then, because I'm looking at the comprehensive plan and just the future land use, piece, you know, there's a goal, but then there are 4 principles, and then there's a whole lot of strategies. And so I think what we have to do is give ourselves time to walk our way through and make sure we have good understanding, make sure we're flagging what we see in there that kind of sticks out to us, that we want to make sure that we have further discussion on, and then begin to build what we're doing by not rushing ourselves and taking our time. I think our shortest term is what, 3 years or something like that?
2 or 3, I don't remember. That wasn't,
Yeah.
two.
But
I think you got 3, 2, and 1.
yeah, and so we're going to be working at this right here for a while, and so I think if we make sure that we're educated, that the worst thing that I hate to do is open my mouth to recommend something, and I'm not educated on what I'm recommending. And so I think if we take our time and we walk our way, there's some portions of the comprehensive plan that, you know, we might be able to hit 2 or 3 in a month, you know, but there's some in there that we might have to take 2 months, just for one section of it. And I think if we go in with the mindset that we're gonna walk our way through here, and then we'll also be introduced to departments, and we might find out that departments might line up with the walkthrough, and invite those departments as we walk through the comprehensive plan to have those conversations, knowing that, number one, we're making sure we're looking at this comprehensive plan and we see equity, you know, in this plan, but then we're also hearing from the players that are to be responding and adhering to the plan. And so I kind of agree with what you're saying, and then we're going to hear from Councilmember Ja.
Yeah, I think that we're in agreement that we need some orientation to what's going on, throughout the county. Just how we do that, seems to be, the question. I agree with you that there's lots of information that they have that I want, but I think that if we leave it too wide, it could take a long time for each of them. So if we have like some generic questions that could be asked across the board when they're getting ready to do their presentation, so that they're not just all over the place, but how each of whatever they're talking about has to do with equity. What's the level of equity that's in those departments? And maybe, 2 or 3 questions, like I said, that are generic for all of them.
And so I yes, ma'am.
I think we have the equity tool, which, maybe I'm making this too easy, but I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to be practical, that we have an expert here helping us develop an equity tool. I mean, let's face it, Dr. Houchin's gonna develop the equity tool, and then we can weigh in on it. So we'll have a kind of a guide as we go through the plan, and as you said, I guess I'll just call you Miss Carter said, that we're, sorry, I'm just not used to this form. I apologize for just being myself, but I'll get used to it, or maybe you'll get used to me. Anyway, I think we don't have to understand exactly like how thick the road has to be, or what the degree of drop down has to be to make sure the water doesn't run on the road. We don't have to understand all that. We have to sort of look, and hopefully that's would be the equity tool would kind of, how do we look at this? I mean, are the roads in certain areas not maintained well, and do those happen to be areas, where people of color live? So I think that we don't have to be experts, because I know nothing about growth management, but I'm ready to, use my common sense and my sense of decency that, what's equity and what's not equity, and I don't have to understand the details of, the whole specific process, so.
And we might be able to knock out 2 bullets with this one conversation, because the next bullet, talks about what policies and departments or programs and services, would we like to focus on for this year's work plan. And so so my approach, and I shared with you all last time, I'm only 3 years, I'm born and raised, but I've done all my pastoring outside of Alachua County except for the past 3 years. And so I don't come with I want to see what that department is doing, because I've seen how, I come from the mindset is I want to see what everybody's doing. And, but I know some of us have the expertise because you've been dealing with certain departments and certain programs, for years, and you've been seeing things. And so we might, be focused in on certain departments or certain programs. And, but I think that in my mind, I think it's more beneficial to make sure we at least get an eye on everything, just so we don't miss something that might not have been, in our area of interest. And but it's extremely important to somebody in our community that deserves equity. And so my thoughts are what we've been talking about as it relates to the comprehensive plan, first educating ourselves, and then working through the comprehensive plan, and then having an opportunity to hear or be exposed to all departments, so then we can red flag things that we hear or see, and then know where it is that we really want to narrow in, because we're seeing this tool that we're using is ringing bells and saying that this department right here, we need to look a little closer into it. But I don't think we need to exclude any department as we do this right here. But if there are people that are thinking around the same level, I'm ready to receive a motion where we can go further with discussion. And the motion is on this work plan. What is it that we plan on doing to, one, we've been asked to make sure that we look over make sure that we look at the comprehensive plan and use this tool on the comprehensive plan, but then also begin to be exposed to the different departments. Is there a motion or another piece of discussion? Yes, sir.
is this work plan supposed to be for a whole year, or what period?
My understanding is what we're going to do this year. What's the objective this year?
So I don't see anything in here about any kind of outreach, and I'm thinking we should be getting feedback from, residents and employees of the county.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we should have meetings at some community sites, or decide what communities we think are most vulnerable to equity issues, and plan outreach to those communities, like maybe find out who are leaders in that community, and send them a stack of questionnaires and ask them to distribute to people who will be active in their neighborhood, and then have a community meeting in that area. And doing a survey process first will gin up attendance for such a meeting.
And so I feel that would be, so when we go to the Board of County Commissioners and we say, this is the work that we're gonna do, one, the big elephant that we're gonna chew on is we're gonna work our way through the comprehensive plan. Two, that we're gonna have, first, we want to be trained in some type of orientation. And then we're gonna work our way through the comprehensive plan. As we work our way through the comprehensive plan, we wanna hear from all departments throughout the year, and we want to ensure that we're speaking on behalf of the community, that we schedule opportunities for outreach to make sure we're just not speaking for ourselves, but we're speaking from when we share this information with the community, what their responses are. And so that sounds, and it might be something else, but those are some points that I think that we can present to the Board of County Commissioners. Is this what we want to do this year? What do you all think?
I'm trying to formulate a motion in my mind.
Okay.
That was a lot. That was a lot.
Form it.
But does the comp plan include any specific feedback from constituents? I mean, you know, because we're looking at paper, and which, you know, I like all that. I mean, I like all the stuff that's written. I believe in it. But is there any requirement that each of the comp plan sections has feedback, either, you know, hopefully data and some verbal testimony? Is that part of the comp plan? And then would we have access to those? Sorry.
No, my apologies for cutting you off. When the comprehensive plan is created or amended, there's a public engagement process. So this comprehensive plan was created, I believe, in 2019. It was prior to my start here. I can ask about the community engagement process that was involved in creating this and get that information. The amendments that we made to the comprehensive plan, and any amendments that have been made, which there have been, I'm sure, many over time, the specific policies, each of those, there is a public engagement process. So for example, we took those amendments in front of the Development Review Board. I could be saying their name wrong, but that Development Planning Committee, and held public workshops on the definitions and the adjustments prior to doing that. And we could surely share that feedback and captured all that feedback, and we could share that with this board.
But the comments were on the plan itself, right? That how it was written or what the guidelines were. So
in that case, those comments were on the specific definitions and policies that were being discussed for amendment.
Yes, I think Colleen and I are in agreement that it would be useful to get some real world feedback in addition to looking at the plan and the policies. I don't know how we would do that, but I think that would be critical.
And let me also add, may I make one more comment with regard to community engagement? So the comprehensive plan is up again for a complete overhaul by 2040. That's a long way away. Any plan to overhaul it would have a massive community engagement plan for that process. So our planners are assuming that after we complete an equity audit and after this board provides feedback, that it would likely find a consultant group that would help support an overhaul of the comprehensive plan in the coming year.
All right, is there a motion, or?
Chair Rawls, I would like to move that okay, this is gonna be a long motion, but I'm trying to get all in there.
We're
That
patient.
we, have an orientation process for this board, to be determined, I suppose. And after we do that, that we review as a board the comprehensive plan, providing an opportunity for departments to do a presentation to the board on their, policies, outcomes, funding streams, programs, et cetera. And a portion of this be set aside that we have an opportunity to, engage the community, an opportunity for community engagement.
All right, you've heard the lengthy motion.
May I make an amendment? May I make an amendment?
We have to get a second first, and
Oh, sorry.
then you can offer it. Is there a second? Okay. All right, you've heard the motion made by Council Member Crawford, and we have a second. Now, is there any discussion?
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I was just wanting to know if we could add that we would, look at the audit tool in addition to the comp plan.
All right.
Okay,
And so I think we know that's the tool that's gonna be given to us, but if we wanna make sure it's clear, because I think that she's gonna get, that's the tool that we're gonna utilize through this whole process.
I think I mentioned budget, funding streams, programs, so would that kind of encompass all of that? The budget?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a point of clarification. For a motion, does it have to be that specific? I don't know that we have to have that level of specificity. Or do
And I think what we're doing, we're preparing something to take to the board and say, this is the direction that we're going.
Mm-hmm,
And so the direction that we're going to work our way through the comprehensive plan.
mm-hmm.
We want to hear from all the boards, all the
Mhm.
departments throughout the year. We want to, well, we had the orientation piece up first, but I don't know if that be. And then we want to engage the community. These are the areas, the 4 areas, the 4 points that we want to follow as we work our way through it.
Correct. Do we need to add in the tool that we'll be using? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think we
Have
need to
have
get that
done.
specific,
Oh, okay.
because Dr. Houghton already kind of told us, as the person that, put this whole thing together, that's a tool that she's gonna give us. And so I'm sure we'll utilize that tool.
Oh, I thought she wanted us to comment on it.
Was that a suggestion?
But I don't mean to be nitpicky.
Okay,
I just thought that was
Okay.
an important part of it, but
but I think consensus, we can understand that we're gonna utilize that
Yeah.
tool and any other tools that are placed in our hands. All right, so as the motion and proper second, any other discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, looks like unanimous. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. All right, and so that's going to be our direction. First, an orientation to kind of empower us to do the work. And then, we understand that our task that we're gonna work our way through and understanding the comprehensive plan, utilizing that equity tool, that we're wanting to hear from all departments, but additionally, we want to make sure that we're speaking on behalf of the community and that we're having community engagement and outreach. And so those are the 4 things that we want to accomplish, as we go forward this year. And we want to share that with the Board of County Commissioners. Yes, sir.
I think that's great. Just one quick question on the orientation, just a little bit of idea of what your thought might be. I know probably Dr. Houchin is probably already generating some ideas now for orientation. Are you thinking of your next meeting, for example, you devote all of that to orientation, or is this something longer over the period of the year, or you want us to, devote half of the meeting to orientation and the other half to, starting to work on the comp plan? What are your general thoughts about orientation so we'll know what to prepare for going forward.
Maybe Councilmember Carter and Crawford.
Yeah, so I think one woman's vote or one woman's thought is that we devote a meeting to do some level of orientation for those of us who may not have a good grasp of what the county is and does, and the kind of the segue into that, and as it relates to equity. We had a high level last meeting, but mostly it was around specifically how we came to be as a advisory board. So I think that would be important before we go into the comprehensive plan. And then I think as we go through it, as it makes sense, if there are departments or areas or documents or things that we need to learn even deeper about, that be a part of whatever that month's meeting and goals are to accomplish through that month. But I guess just because we are different in that, I don't know, because I've not been on a county advisory board, but it feels like if we were on one of those ones that had just one department, they spend at least the first meeting describing all about that department, what it is that they do, so that the board has a better understanding as they're moving forward in making decisions. Because we have the whole county, all of the departments, divisions, documents, policies that are now under our purview in the area of equity that we need to look out for, seems to me that we should have some, like, to devote some time to talk about that first before we jump 2 feet in. Again, that's just an idea from me. I don't speak for the whole board, but I would feel more comfortable.
I agree with that. I think, but my question is, just how do we want to start with the county manager's office and go to administrative services, and then kind of like, I'm just asking, because to me, that's what makes sense to me, because that's what makes sense to me. But I do agree that, yes, we have to, I think we should get an entire overview before we delve into the comp plan, because it's all going to relate, it's going to make more sense. I think it'll make more sense as, you know, if we have the entire, you know, go through the comp plan, and then see how these departments fit under each piece of that. I agree with that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
In case people want a firmer idea of the process and purpose of a comprehensive plan, I want to recommend an article. The name of the article is "What is a Comprehensive Plan?" and you can find it at crcog.net. crcog.net. What is a comprehensive plan? And I've had a lot of that, but I want to offer that if somebody wants more about comp plans.
All right.
Chair, if I
I'm
may
sorry.
too. I don't know, Dr. Halchin, do you have access to the Citizens Academy, materials, or we could probably get that to, I mean, obviously we don't want to give anybody a big stack of reading, but that would be another resource that we could probably circulate to everyone too, to give some of that higher level information on just,
And what does the Citizens Academy accomplish?
so, I would probably just,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's an annual program where citizens volunteer, and they basically go to each department, and they spend a certain amount of time, a couple hours maybe, something like that, at a department, and they learn presentation, and they get to ask questions, that kind of a thing. But it spans over a few months. Dr. Houchin, I don't know how long that is, but it could be 4 to 6 months, pardon?
11 weeks, 10 weeks, 11 weeks.
Something like that, yeah. So it takes a while to do something like that, but it gives there is some great information there. We could do, if you wanted to do a meeting as an orientation, we could certainly do that too. We could, all departments are organized under the county manager's office, as you mentioned earlier. As a deputy, I have certain departments. Each assistant county manager has certain departments. And so between the four of us, we've got them all. And so we could just start with that and describe which departments under each assistant county manager and how each department, what its programs, what its services are. You could do that in one meeting time and give a good overview. But if you wanted to either one, connect with the Citizens Academy, it may be, you may not be able to do it this year, maybe to connect next year, but we can check and see. Or to bring in, some format of the Citizens Academy, bring it into a meeting like this, we could do that too. So whatever the will of the board is.
Do they have written documents that support the academy, that describe the various departments before they go visit them?
I believe so. And so we can certainly get that information for you. It'll be like this, it'll fill one of these binders for sure. Yes, Ms.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry,
Sure.
yes. It was my experience when I had a county life, that we had a guide to program services for all of the departments, and that was the document that was included in the,
Yeah, I saw that.
in the, so that to me is that's a comprehensive, or it used to be, document for all the departments, which we could all, it could be emailed out, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
And, so we wouldn't, you could print it out and put it in a binder, but that, in and of itself, if they're still done, that's what I should say.
Yeah, I think that's still around, so we
If
can
it's-
certainly get whatever printed material.
Right, because even if it's like a couple years old, it's still, because you haven't done the Citizens Academy in a while? Has it been done in the past?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, then it's should be up to date. That I think would be an excellent document to
Yeah.
get the ball rolling.
All right, yes, ma'am.
So, I just wanna make sure, that I'm understanding that in whatever order we do get the information, that it can be tied to equity. You know, so that people aren't just coming in and saying, my department does this, I've got so many employees, and, I wanna get to the issue of equity and how, that's why I was asking about generic questions.
And that's
Don't-
I think would be the guide for them.
Yeah.
For them to, whatever the questions are that we come up with, that, I agree, that we provide, and that should be a place, that should be a nice jumping off point for each department to talk about, explain that, their position of the program and how it relates.
So, Dr. Houchin, will that tool be available at the next meeting?
Yes, it will be.
So I think what might guide us then is that we spend some time in that next meeting looking at that tool. And then from when we experience what does that tool do, then now what do we do to make sure we get the information that we want when we hear from the department?
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
Could we get it ahead of time? I'll do better if I can look at things and think about them and look at them again later, so I'm not so good at. Dr. Houchin, is that something we could get ahead of the meeting?
Yes, you can. I'm looking for how far ahead, when I will have that complete for the growth management team. But surely you'll have it ahead of your next meeting, at least a week early, as we have everything published a week early.
That's great. That'd be perfect. Thank you.
so we know what it is that we want to present to the Board of County Commissioners. Does it seem feasible that we can, after we've had this, with that in May, at the board meeting in May, one of the board meetings in May, that we can, present this direction that we wanna go? All right. Do we need to make that a formal motion, or can we just consensus say that at the board meeting in May, that we would like to present our work plan?
I think at this point, you can just maintain consensus. As you draft your work plan, you may want to formalize that in the future meeting, as you start working on an actual document that is your work plan. And in that document, state the date that you'll present it to the board.
Yeah, they asked
All right.
for the first meeting in May, but.
All right. Sounds like a winner. Well, do we have any member comments or concerns? Any member comments or concerns? Yes, ma'am.
I just mentioned at the beginning, and I don't know if this is an appropriate place for it, but I'm just gonna go ahead and bring it up anyway. Probably in do you remember, Kelly, when that was? 2019? Anyway, a couple of years ago, the county and the city went together and gave Shands US a lot of money to put up the urgent care center. And I just read about a big grant that the University of Florida was awarded that was gonna be addressing equity on the east side. And I would just like to find out, and I mean, I can try to find out myself, but what the plan is for that money, because at least in the paper, they said they were gonna do it, they were gonna administer these services through the We Care clinic, through the, Equal Access Clinic. I would just like to learn more about it, because they were sort of committed to us, I thought, the county, to look at equity issues on the east side. We gave them a lot of money. I would just like to know if that has been tied into the efforts that we're already pursuing.
And the county is a party to this new grant, you read it?
I just read the article in the paper, and that's my question. My question is the county part of it? They just talked about the equal access clinics, and, the county funds a big, huge clinic at the health department, and that was, kind of part of all that discussion, and so I'm just bringing it up. I'm not sure this is the right place, but I thought I would bring it up. I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, I'm
Do you know
sure.
anything?
Yeah, we certainly can see what information we can find out about it. I personally don't know about the grant, but, we can certainly inquire and then either bring that information back to this board, send it out to your email.
Yeah, and I could get in touch with Paul at the health department. It just came up yesterday, and so I just had I emailed somebody at the health department, because there is at the health department, because my background's health, so obviously it's a topic I'm real interested in, but the health department has a whole equity plan that they developed, and so one would hope that was somehow tied into it. It was a very involved plan that they developed, so.
All right. Are there any other, yes, ma'am?
Chair, apologies, I think that, we should have a line for public comment. In case there's any public comment.
Oh, okay. All right, any other board member comments?
This is not about our group. I just need you all to show up 7 o'clock Friday in Cypress and Grove and clap loud for a free jazz show.
All right. All right, any other council members? All right, any public comments? All right. If I had a gavel, it would be louder, but with this pen, this meeting is now adjourned.
Is this for us? Are we supposed to take this?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all.
I'll leave mine here.
Or we can leave it here?
We can leave it with that.
Anybody headed due west, like
Oh, yeah, it is.
somewhere towards Fifth Avenue neighborhood?
I like this kind of thing.
What?
I am not, but I can be if you need me to be.
Yeah? Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I wanna get to Aquin Jones.
Oh, I know you do.
You need a rest?
She just.
Okay, all right. I think so.
Hey, Michelle.
They had those.
I think it wasn't.
It was exclusively for Dr. Houghton.
Yeah, I don't think it was a Zoom.
Well, that was my question. At some point, could we do Zoom?
Well,
I think we zoomed her in because she had an injury.
Oh, for this meeting?
I think you can.
We can. I know we
You
can.
can, but there are
But not
rules
right-
about being able to vote, being present to vote.
Got it, okay.
No, I think we should be.
Right. And
Okay, well,
I'm
let
in
my
University time.
Well, that's okay. Let me not feel about it.
I'm sorry, I just expressed.
Yes. No, because, no, I was saying, because like, for example,
How are you doing?
I'm gonna be on vacation.
I'm
gonna be on vacation, so I don't get help, yeah.
Oh,
Make
what's
us
your
envious if
This
you,
is really, right, that's what, but I wanna, that shouldn't stop me from leaving. I mean,
yeah, you go there to,
things like that.
zoom in and listen and
Yeah.
eat and
And
maybe
it's
even
one of those kind of
pictures.
pictures that I don't have to vote,
Yeah.
you know.
Hey, how are you?
Some unable to be here in person.
I'm tired.
In the,
Jazz band.
the quorum here that's in.
Now I gotta go try to clean out my front seat of my car. You know I live in my
No.
car. I'm low
Well,
key. I'm low-key embarrassed.
I don't wanna cause you an issue.
I don't know. Okay, wait, I was.
But,
Well,
You
but you don't have
right
to,
here, Tristan?
somebody else is offering, I can't speak.
Leave it right here?
Yeah, leave it. I'll take care of it.
It's no big deal. I just gotta move some stuff. What y'all
Oh, no.
Michelle,
I was here.
I asked him, can you change my thing for another color? Yes, that's what I said.
Just you can leave them there.
I love this family office. I was parked in one spot and couldn't come in the door. So I had to leave that spot.
And come around, see.
During the meeting.
Well, I wasn't gonna walk around there at dark, so I had to find me another spot.
But there were multiple.
No, we're talking about the homeless.